Hey everyone, this is Matt from 20 Minute Money, and I am so excited to be here with you today to talk about the 2020 CARES Act and, in particular, information on the stimulus payments that are being made. So I know a lot of you out there have questions about this, and I'm excited to dig in. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Really, three easy topics we're going to cover today. A little bit of an overview. What is the CARES Act? That is a big question that I think we should all ground ourselves in so we know where the money's coming from, how it originated, all that good stuff. Am I eligible and how much should I expect? So we're going to get into that a little bit. And then how quickly will I receive my funds? How, meaning will it get to me, and when will it get to me? So really important questions. And I have some really great information that I think you're going to find useful. So let's dive in here. First of all, what is the CARES Act? So the CARES Act, as we think about the crisis we're in right now, really two major sources of funding that are, pumping money into the economy. One from a monetary perspective, coming from the U.S. Federal Reserve System, and we will save that for another video, for another day. The second source is really the fiscal side of things, where the United States Congress is appropriating funds. So as we think about the CARES Act in particular, that came about on March 27th, and it was the third phase of emergency fiscal programs enacted by Congress. So the first was about $8 billion they put out there to fund vaccine research and development, really kickstart that program. And the second was about $100 billion for sick leave, expanding that across the country, really trying to ramp up the testing protocol in the country as well. And these are kind of high level. I'm sure these are hundreds of pages of legislation that went through. The third is what we're talking about today. So when you think about stimulus checks, what's going on there, that is the third phase, and it's called the CARES Act, about $2 trillion that was appropriated. And there's actually a fourth phase right now that's in process. So when we think about the stimulus checks and why this is important, as I understand it, it's a one-time payment right now. We're going to get into the amounts. But the fourth phase, it's good for us to keep an eye on that because as of right now, April 17th, that is being considered, and it may extend benefits out, knowing that, some governors are looking to keep their states closed while others are looking to start to open them. And I think it's a mixed bag. And I think we're going to be in that type of environment for the near to mid future, at least right now. So more to come there. So that gives you a little bit of framing. Where's the money coming from? How does it fit into the context of everything else that's happening? So phase 3 CARES Act, what's in that in particular? So it addresses, I've got four major pillars of this legislation. One is consumers like you and I. So individuals out there, this is supposed to be direct economic impact for those consumers. So those are the stimulus checks. Another part of this bill that helps consumers is extended unemployment benefits. So we're not going to talk about that piece directly today, but it's good to know that $600 a week, I believe, that's being added on top of state programs, that was legislated as part of this $2 trillion. The other piece, small businesses, everyone I think has heard of the SBA Payroll Protection Program, or PPP program. So $350 billion actually got exhausted yesterday. Another thing to keep an eye on if you're a small business owner is, will they extend this? So if you weren't able to connect with a bank, if you haven't gotten confirmation that your loan was approved, there's a good chance it wasn't. And you got to keep your eye on phase 4 to see if that gets extended. They're talking about adding another $250 billion to that 350. Economic stabilization. This is the interesting one. So direct payments coming from Treasury, about $500 billion of this. And this is one of the pieces of the act that had a lot of noise around it, because I think folks were concerned that it didn't have enough oversight and it would become a slush fund. to the extent that can happen. I'm going to move this over here. And then there's kind of some other things. They tried to clean up and iron out some issues just across the board. So different accounting treatments for things, bank reserves, which were taken to zero, some tax treatments, etc., as the government tries to help us through this. So that's the CARES Act. Let's dive into the consumer side of this. So am I eligible for the program? It's a great question. And first cut at this is, are you a U.S. citizen or a U.S. Resident alien? That's important. This cannot be claimed as a dependent on someone else's return. So if you're a dependent on someone else's return, you are not eligible. You have to have a social security number that is valid for employment. So a valid social security number. The exception to that is if either spouse is a member of the U.S. Armed Forces at any time during the taxable year, then only one spouse needs to have a valid social security number. And then in addition to that, you need to have adjusted gross income below an amount based on your filing status and number of qualifying children. So this is language coming right from the IRS's website. That's kind of the first set. So if you fit in that box, then we have to think about, what are the actual income thresholds for this? So first of all, we just read through this, and let's see here. I believe here we go. So calculating my economic impact payment. So this is the stimulus check. Question 11 here. All of you, I'll link to this in the comments, but irs.gov, pretty easy to get to. This is a great resource for you to come and just check it out. Eligible individuals will receive $1,200. Two eligible individuals filing a joint return will receive $2,400. You will receive an additional $500 payment for each qualifying child you claimed on your tax return being used to calculate your payment who meets the following conditions. So the child is your son, daughter, stepchild, eligible foster child, et cetera, et cetera. So you can read those conditions. There is another piece to this. There's kind of a step up on question or answer 13 here. So eligible individuals don't need a minimum income for payment. So there's no floor to this thing. You could make $1 and be eligible, but there is kind of a ceiling to this thing. For higher income individuals, the payment amount is reduced by 5% of the amount that your adjusted gross income exceeds $75,000 a year. So that's $112,500 for taxpayers filing as head of household. So that goes up a little bit if you're the head of the household, or $150,000. So that's a doubling of that for joint filings until it's zero. So you can see a little bit here how that phases out. And really for a joint return, you're getting nothing once you get to $198,000. For head of household, once you get to $136,500 for the year, and then $99,000 for all others. You can see for qualifying children then how that steps up below based on what you make. So I think that kind of helps us think through how much should I receive and what are the thresholds out there? And I know that's been just a question that a lot of folks have been asking. Here's the most important piece, and I think the piece where I can add hopefully a little bit more value. When will the funds arrive? So there's really two options for funding. And one is mailing a check. The other is depositing to a bank account. And if you've dealt with the IRS, if you've paid taxes, or if you've received Social Security payments, and all of this is outlined on the IRS's website, they have your information. They have your information already. So if they've funded your account before, they will be using that account. It is good to go check to make sure, and I'll show you how to do that. But let's go through these two options. Mailing a check, it's the slowest form of payment. And the first batch of checks will be mailed early next week. So they're prepping them on Sunday, as I understand it. Roughly 5 to 10 million will be mailed a week, starting the week of April 20th, which is next week. It can take 3 to 5 business days to get through the mail. And many banks are cashing these checks for free, so that's a good thing. So right now, I think there's around 160 million eligible checks or payments being made. About 80 million went out today, or excuse me, on the 15th, and that was through depositing to a bank account, our second option here. So that's the quickest form of payment. It's going to go through the ACH rails, or the automated clearinghouse rails in the banking system. Roughly 50% of the total eligible payments were made on the 15th. So that's 80 million roughly of the 160. The remaining direct deposits will be made ASAP. So they're going to be doing that through batches throughout the next week or two here. It's really important to get yourself into that bucket. So the big thing to know here is, if right now you go and you check your status at the IRS's Check My Payment site, and I'll show you that in a second. If you're not yet set up for deposit to a bank account and you don't have a bank account, you can actually register a general purpose reloadable prepaid card. And a lot of times that might be known as a J-hook card, or a card that you could find in a grocery store, maybe a big box retailer like Walmart. So that would be a good option for you if you don't have a bank account, which I know a lot of folks don't have a bank account here in the US who are eligible for these funds. Instead of waiting potentially weeks for these checks, go register a prepaid card as your funding option at the IRS's website. If you have a bank account and you're not registered there, and you're eligible, that would be my other set of advice here. This is kind of hacking with the IRS, and I think they would appreciate that as well. It's costly for them to distribute these checks. It takes a lot of time, like we just talked about, and at the end of the day, you're going to get funded quicker and really more efficiently. So let's go check out this site again, just to show you what it looks like. And here they're called economic impact payments. You can go to that on their site, and you can see here tax filers. If you've filed before, you can go here and to get my payment. Non-filers, you can enter your payment information on here. So really important, if you filed before, you want to check to see how your payment is currently slated to go. You can go in here and check it out. And if they're mailing you a check, you can enter your bank account information or a prepaid card. For non-filers, come in here and really do the same thing. Make sure you're in their system. And if you're not, enter your information, but then instruct them, if you can, to do a bank deposit onto either your bank account, your checking account, or a general purpose reloadable prepaid card, which will cut out a lot of time between now and receiving your check. So that is all I have for now. Hopefully this was helpful, and good luck out there. I will be back soon with more 20-minute money information for you to help your financial education. Thanks.